order. Please, would you do the roll call of our members?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco? Present. Mrs. Payetti, Mrs. Cameron?
Present.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Present.
Mr. Crowe, present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Under number 4, approval of the agenda. Action item B needs to be removed due to the event being canceled by the organizer. If we can have our approval with removing with the change of removing action item B.
I'll make that.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please, Mr. Crowe?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, we're on item 5 for public comment. We have a nice group out here today on a Wednesday night. Do we have
We
public?
did not have anybody sign up.
Okay,
Okay, so I have one thing, Vicki.
Yes.
So when we scheduled the meet, when I requested that we move it from Thursday to Wednesday, somebody, I don't remember who, said we have to bring Halloween candy. So I remember.
and you
And
brought
I
it.
did.
I remember.
Yeah, and you got some.
I didn't even know that.
I wrote it on my calendar so I wouldn't forget.
Oh my gosh, look at you.
So maybe you and Charles can pass it.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're fine.
You didn't know you had a prize for attending, did you?
She brought the good stuff.
Next time we'll need
Pass
quarters.
that.
Everyone that comes get a quarter.
And next time I won't ask.
Under your seat, there's a key and there's a brand. Outside.
That's from Danny. This is not from me.
You
That's
don't
the
think that it's
extent.
under the one, not, no one's sitting in and you can't have it. You have to be in that permanent seat.
Like Oprah.
We are such a professional board member group here. Okay, we didn't have public comment,
No.
so
we'll
we're
move on to 6.
we're on to item 6.
And Madam President, members of the board, item 6A is a review of the charter renewal process. As you know, Deming Cesar Chavez is up for renewal this year. And we've hired Shelley Sharon, who has extensive experience leading that process. And she's going to be really helpful in helping us through this and supporting the school, the district and the school. And then we have also Daniel Hill, who is an attorney who represents districts as well as other charter authorizers and supports that process when we get into negotiations, which would happen later in the process. So with that, Shelley, you want me to turn it over to you? Are you ready?
I'm ready, and it's nice to meet all of you. I think what we're going to start with, though, is with Dan's piece, which is a review of the law, just an overview of the charter school law.
So I provided a copy of the law to you guys.
Do you want to share the screen with me? Oh, I'm sorry. We're breaking
Go
up a little bit. If I can share the screen, I can pull it up.
Sure. Charles is giving you access now. Okay, you should be able to share it now, Shelley.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you all for having us, and turn it over to Dan. Dan,
Thanks,
do
Shelley.
you want to just introduce yourself a little
will.
bit?
Thanks.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent, my name's Dan Hill. I'm an attorney based in Albuquerque. My relevant background actually was a teacher before I became a lawyer many years ago now. And I spent some time as general counsel for the public education department as well. So now I have a private practice where I primarily represent charter schools and other educational entities. I do also represent some small businesses and kind of whatever the cat drags in, so to speak, as well. And so Shelley reached out to me to kind of help with this project around, the renewal of this charter school and then kind of the procedures we would follow going forward with contract negotiation and then, continuing monitoring under the Charter Schools Act. So with that, I'm not going to read the statute to you.
Mr. Hill, can I ask you to stop just a minute? I'd like to introduce the governing council that's here from Deming Cesar Chavez and the staff members. I'm sorry, I should have done that first. But we have Chris Masters is their business manager and CFO. Noel Nunez is online. He is their director. And then if you all would just introduce yourselves. So Crystal, we will start with you.
I'm Crystal Benny. I'm the president of the governing council.
I'm Nick Bettis. I'm the secretary for the facility.
I'm Barbara Reedy. I'm a member of the board. Hi, I'm Gideon Rabon, also a member.
Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate your support. All right, it's all yours.
Thanks. So like I said, I'm not going to read you the statute. I've kind of pulled from this is 22-8B is the Charter Schools Act. So that's the statute that governs all charter schools in New Mexico, both state and locally authorized charter schools. So I pulled the relevant portions kind of as a guide in terms of what applies to the district here as the authorizer. So one kind of just point around the language and the terms. You hear the term authorizer most commonly in New Mexico. In the statute, it's worded as chartering authority. That's the same as authorizer. And so by definition, the district is the chartering authority here. And this first section of the statute 22-8B-5.3 really sets forth in pretty broad language the duties and powers of the district with regard to authorizing a local charter school. Again, I'm not going to read them. I think some of the key pieces here, though, it does give you the authority to create policies and procedures. So those are going to be key, particularly at this juncture going forward in terms of the oversight of the school, should it be renewed. But this is sort of the basic nuts and bolts of what you're authorized to do as the authorizer. So you can keep scrolling down, Shelley. So further on in the statute, 22-8B-12 sets forth with some detail the procedure in a very high level of how you monitor, oversee, and then how you deal with a school that's up for renewal, like we're dealing with now. So I'm not going to read it. There's provisions about the term of the charter. My understanding is this charter was on a 3-year term currently, and so that's why they're up for renewal. Typically 5 years is the standard term. Outside of a new school, it gets a 6-year term because there's a planning year. Some of the key points in this section of the statute. So the chartering authority shall monitor. So that means you're required to monitor kind of the overall performance of the school. The statute goes on further to require that you're supposed to do an annual site visit to the school. So that's subparagraph E talks about the site visit. Kind of the general framework is the district would do a site visit. So either have staff or a contractor do a site visit. And then if there's issues at the site visit, those get sent to the school to rectify. And then if there's not if it's not fixed or there's not any sort of movement towards getting into compliance, then there's further corrective action and sanctions that the district can impose on the school. Those typically look like a corrective action plan. The statute talks about suspension. There's not really a way to suspend a charter school. If you suspend the school's charter, you're essentially closing it. So even though the statute talks about that, it's really not something that's, can be used. So kind of beyond corrective action plan, you get down to the level of revocation. Subsection or subparagraph I talks about the timelines for renewal. So the wording's a little strange, but it's no later than 270 days prior to the expiration of the charter. In this case, governing body is the charter schools governing council, has to submit a renewal application, and then the district has to have a hearing on that application 180 days prior. This section we're scrolling through sets forth all the stuff that you're supposed to provide in there. If we can stop on K, Shelley, so right here, K sets forth the reasons why a authorizer can. It says suspend. As I said, we can't really do that. It doesn't practically work, but revoke or not renew a charter school. So there's 5 grounds. Committed material violation of any conditions, standards, or procedures set forth in the contract. Material violation isn't really defined, but it's something bigger than a minor issue, so to speak. Number 2, failed to meet or make substantial progress towards achievement on the departments. That would be PEDs, standards of excellence, or student performance standards identified in the charter contract. So this one is for academic performance or achievement. Standards of excellence, kind of an outdated term now, but we would go off of the Vista's data, and then I suppose if it ever comes out, and then the also what's in the charter contract. So if there's performance goals in the contract, we would deal with that. 3 is for fiscal mismanagement, so failing to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management. Again, strange wording. Usually you would use like GAAP or some sort of accounting language, but that's how it's worded. If you're on tribal land, failure to comply with the consultations required by the Indian Education Act. And then the 5 is a catch-all. So any violation of law that the charter school is not specifically exempted from. And those exemptions are set forth in statute. The district itself really doesn't have the authority to waive legal requirements outside of what's in the statute. The district can't impose its district policies on the charter school, but all sort of state laws and special ed, Title I, those sorts of things all apply to the charter school. And if they fail to comply, that could be grounds for revocation or non-renewal. There's some processes set forth in the statute, but really what the statute says is that the district is required to set forth those processes that meet these kind of basic requirements. And then if there is a decision to revoke the charter or not renew the charter, you have to give a written decision, and there's a process for which the charter school can appeal the decision first to Secretary of Education and then to district court if they're still aggrieved. The district, for what it's worth, can also appeal the secretary's decision. So if the secretary overturned the decision of the board, the district could also appeal that to district court as well. So 22-8B9 sets forth kind of the general requirements for a contract. There's there's some dates that are required. So it's within 30 days from the approval of the application. In this case, it'd be the renewal application. Typically for state authorized charter schools, there's a waiver of that 30 days because, if you're following along 180 days before the expiration of the charter, typically puts your renewal hearing, right around the holiday season, a little bit before. And so, that contract would have to be entered into kind of early January, and that's not what most folks are focused on at that time. So at the state level for the PEC, those are typically done in the spring. That's assuming the school is renewed, that's a conversation we'd have to have if there would be willingness to do a waiver to push that date later into the spring. And then it did include section 9.1, which kind of outlines what's required for the performance framework. So the contract is required to have performance framework as part of it, with lots of requirements in terms of metrics that should be measured, included in that performance framework. The other piece of the contract that's not really set forth in the statute as well, but is customary, would be performance goals for the school. So the performance framework is really a standalone piece would apply to any charter school that the district authorizes. And then the performance goals would be something you would negotiate with the school to, have targets for the school that are based on their mission. So, by way of example, I represent some schools that have a CTE focus. And so their contracts have goals that are based on their CTE mission. There's also arts-based schools where you would be more appropriate to have a performance goal based on some of those arts metrics. For schools that don't really have a focus, you're typically looking at mission-specific goals or performance goals based on academic achievement. And then going forward, that would be what the district is reviewing at its annual site visits. So that's a kind of quick and dirty, overview of the statute. I didn't want to kind of bore you with all of the details. Happy to answer questions, kind of if they're a general nature. But I did talk with superintendent about we might want to do a work session to kind of go in more depth on these issues as well.
Anybody have any questions about the law related to it? Shelley's going to talk about the timeline of what we're looking at and kind of where we're at in the process. But it'll be something that we bring as we work through the process, and Shelley will probably talk more about this, but as we work through the process, next month we'll bring more information. And then in December, there will be the decision regarding whether to renew or not. I have to say it like that, so don't anybody stress out about that. But that's when the decision would be made, would be in December, at the very latest January. And then
we have to follow all these procedures. We have to follow these procedures.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I just wanted you aware of
Because
that.
I would vote yes right now, so we can move on.
Sorry.
So we have to go through the process. We have to review all of the components as outlined in the law.
It is kind of sad that we have to do that, but then on the other hand, it's like any public school too. Sometimes if you don't really take a deep dive into it, you don't see what's happening.
And they were saying the term can be either 5 years or up to 6 years.
No, 6 years is for a new charter.
Mhm.
It's 5 years for an existing
Mhm.
charter. Because the new charter has a planning year.
That's right. So it's 5 years is the standard kind of term. Sometimes there are shorter terms than 5 years if there's performance issues or something like that. But you can't go beyond the 5 years. So you could do less than, but not more.
And right now we have a 3-year?
It was a 3-year, yes.
Actually, no, the current one is the 5-year.
5 year.
Okay,
The one prior to that.
It was a 3-year. Okay.
okay. I was gonna ask why we had 3 instead of 5.
The 3-year was
Okay, I'm glad we have a 5-year. That was my concern. Yeah.
But
okay.
it does end at the end of June,
No,
which is why
yeah.
we're going through the process
Yeah,
now to make
okay.
sure we don't miss those deadlines.
Okay.
So we'll be voting on it in December, huh?
Correct. All right, Ms. Sharon?
All right, well, thank you. And let me move this over a little bit so you can see it. So, oh, I'm sorry. Where did I go? Let me see, I just had it up. So I'll just tell you briefly a little bit about me. I worked for Albuquerque Public Schools for a number of years and did a lot of things with them. And then I did move into the charter community where I opened and ran charter schools. I worked for the public education department for a number of years. And then I just started my own consulting business. So I apologize. I had this and I lost it. I have a new computer and apparently Mac now has its own chip. It doesn't use the Intel one anymore and they're not even sure how to use all of it. So it's on for a minute.
And we do have the handout. So.
Yes, I provided, so they have a copy,
Of the
Shelley,
site
of
visit
the
protocol?
renewal timeline. Mhm.
Oh, all right. Well, then, all right.
So
well-
you can talk through it if you'd like.
Okay, I'll just talk through that. Sorry. I'll just talk through that then, if you don't mind. I don't have to share the screen anymore then. Okay. So basically, the last contract was July 1st, 2019. And we'll use that as a basis for the site visit. I have a little team that I put together and Vicky's going to send some people from the district. So basically I'm going through the contract and we'll be checking, we will be doing a deep dive. So all of the elements that are embedded into the contract will be something we'll be checking and we'll be looking at financial, organizational, academic, and maybe some other areas as well. We'll spend a day there and there'll be probably, I don't know, maybe 5 of us meeting with different groups at different times. And then we will end up writing the report, giving it back to the district to review. And again, these timeframes are in the contract where we're coming on November 1st. By the 6th, we'll give the school the preliminary analysis. And then they're supposed to get 30 days to submit responses back to us. We'll finalize it and then we'll send it to them, the final copy. And then we will have the district renewal hearing on the 21st at that board meeting. Basically, the renewal application was submitted. Part A, which of the renewal application was submitted to the district. That's something that the district had to fill out. So the schools has a copy of that and they have a little bit of time to really look at that because it's based on the data that's presented through New Mexico Vistas. And I'm not sure what's going on with that. We're hearing that it's not maybe quite as accurate. So we're asking them to look at that. So basically, that's the time frame. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't think so.
Nope.
No.
I don't think so.
Any questions?
No.
No.
We'll finalize our site visit meetings in the next few days. I have to meet with or get with some of your district people and then some of the people from the school to see how we can coordinate times.
Can I ask a question? We're gonna go do site visits, but it is our building, so if we're responsible for something, it would be on us, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the site visit is more than just a physical, any physical kind of evaluation. I think that's done on an ongoing basis. That's not actually part of this. This is the school performance, academics, it's financials, it's governance, it's HR, it's a combination of things.
That's a good clarification.
Yes.
of all
Yes.
of
Yes.
it. Very much so.
It is our building. You
Yes.
didn't say it's like-
Yes,
That makes
no,
sense.
facility wise, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We take care of a lot of that.
I think the key is it's a site
But
visit.
what are
requires
we
an
coming,
in-person
what are
visit.
we trying to solve? Because we know that the school's successful and there's kids that are graduating. What do we are that they're doing their job? Is that what we're trying to do?
Well, we have to go into a deep dive of the data around the data. Yes, that's something we're required to do by law.
And we are responsible for it, not a second party, somebody that's neutral.
The performance frameworks are generally what dictate what we'd be checking on, but we don't have a copy of those. So if you'd like, I can, I'll be sharing all the documents that we'll be looking into. But the performance frameworks are the areas that are listed in the contract and also in the law, which says, you know, the fiscal information, the organizational meeting, the governance council stuff, the academic performance. And say, for example, like just to piggyback on what Dan was saying, you know, if the school says that they do a special thing, it's part of their mission and it's in their contract that they're going to conduct certain kind of classes, for example, or have certain kind of staff on board, then we would check that. We might go into some special education files and check those. Attendance records, you know, there's issues about maintaining a certain attendance level and enrollment, you know, like how transient is the population? Are they maintaining the level of enrollment that they said they would? So again, it's really a deep dive into all the different aspects of the charter, the schools operate.
May I,
It's more like an audit.
Yeah.
We're kind of
Yes.
checking, making sure. that
may I,
It's similar to what we go
Yeah.
through, honestly, from the PED regularly.
may I add that I was on the charter school task force for the state originally. And I think some of the things that we've did then and then have been added is some charter schools not in New Mexico because it was new, but in other places just did whatever they wanted to do. And we're really not, part of it was not having the the know-how on how schools should work. And so this is why when we worked on, originally started on it, and it's been improved, is to make sure that it's just not a school out there that's doing whatever they want, but also meeting all of the
State
recommendations.
statutes, right, all the statutes.
Statutes, thank you.
And because we authorize this charter, we have to do the check.
Mhm.
If they were a state charter, the Public Education Commission would be responsible for it.
Right.
So we've basically taken a lot of the Public Education Commission's documents and we modified them to fit your school district.
That makes sense.
Any other questions at this time? This was just a brief overview.
Yeah. Oh, that's yours.
Okay.
You have one.
Do you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
anybody
That's okay.
from the governing board, do you guys have any questions? Okay, I think we're good. Shelley and Dan, thank you for your time tonight. Mr. Nunez, I know you're coming up next with your quarterly report.
That
So
is, and pardon me, Madam Chair, members of the board.
just a minute, Mr. Nunez, hold on just a minute. Shelley, Mr. Hill, Ms. Sharon, do you have anything else that you want to add? We'll move on to the next part of our agenda. If you don't.
I don't, yeah, I don't either, but I'd like to stay for this report from the school.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez and esteemed guests, I do want to apologize for not being there in person. My wife gave me the gift that keeps on giving, which is a cold, so I couldn't be there in person. But I do want to just say one thing based on what Ms. Sharon and Mr. Hill said. You know, you as a board and as a superintendent understand the students that we take. We have a different population. We're not one of those accelerated schools. We're not one of those schools that takes and picks and chooses the best of the best. We take students that have been through some hard situations, that have a hard time graduating for whatever reason. It is what it is. But what we do is we transform them into helping them get and then the graduation and really move on and hopefully be productive citizens. You know, we're not one of those magnet schools. We work with the toughest kids that people have given up and then we give them hope. And you know, as a board, that's what we do. So in consideration of this application, we want you to, when we know that you keep that in mind, but we want to continue servicing that population because that's who we are. And that's what we pride ourselves into. And this is a need that the community needs. So I just wanted to share that with everybody because for those of you that are in attendance, I may not know that's who we are and that's what we serve. So yeah, sometimes data doesn't do well. It doesn't speak to what our school is, but I know Miss Sharon and her group, and they go visit our school, they're gonna see what our school is all about. And we're happy to share our school with anybody because we have a little small gift here in Luna County that we're very proud of, and we're proud to be authorized by Denver Public Schools.
Thank
Now,
you, Mr.
you.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
appreciate y'all. So now on to our quarterly report. And I do apologize if I lose my voice because it's been very good. So we had our fourth quarter report. Mr. Masters, do you think you can continue? I need to get something to drink. I'm so sorry.
No problem, brother. We warned him ahead of time to please take it easy. This will be our fourth quarter report for last year. We're cruising along. So this is what ended June 30th of this year. Our enrollment as of May 25th was 90 students and 63 adults.
If you say that again?
90 days and 63 adults
Okay.
in the night classes. Just to let you know, kind of comparison where we are here on 40th day, we're at 110 day and full enrollment. So we have the 50 adult students. But going back to May of 2023, you see the grades by cohort. We had 19 freshmen by credit, 40 freshmen. So, and then if we look at seniors by cohort, we had 74 and only 30 seniors by credit. So you're seeing that the kids coming in are already down, already low in their credits, and that's our graduation rate according to state is the best. We graduate our kids. We need to continue a bit longer than that. Attendance rate from April through end of May was 81%. We haven't had any personnel changes, no major purchases during this quarter. Next report, you'll get a lot more than major purchases. As for the facility updates, we're planning on the outdoor basketball and sports court, which thank you again very much for approving in your last meeting. Graduation for last semester was we had 20, 14 of our day students and 6 of our adult night students. Current and community activities include the food bank and distribution. The food bank and preparing partnership with CO Shamrock, the career exploration and work study programs, which we have individual businesses, the county of Luna, the city of Deming, all participating in the CTE program.
That's great.
Kids daycare course, at-risk intervention workshops. New Mexico Workforce Solutions career coach who is housed on site, and I forgot to mention her in that program in our CTE program as well. We are still in the planning stages for the education for the detention center. Going a little slow, but we're still involved in that process. As far as professional development, staff training, we have staff wellness, the spring budget workshop, cosmetology, continuing education, the DWI and Narcan training, the Southwest REC new request and evaluation for gifted evaluation rules, and the school law conference. In our governing council member training, we had spring break workshop, school law, National Charter Schools Conference, which June got to attend. The NMPD continuing board membership training. And the governing council members have met the required hours for training, all of them. And then as of July 1st, it started over again. In your packet, you'll see the meeting minutes for each of our meetings, our governing council meetings, and financial reports. I stand for any questions of any.
I know I asked you before, or somebody did, and I don't remember though. Are you, with the detention center, are you focusing on juveniles or also adults?
So as per the law, we're looking at 21 and under.
Okay,
As per what our governing council and our leadership team is that if we can't find someone to help those, we will continue those. We understand that
Okay.
it's reimbursed, it's not.
right,
But for our focus is the 18 to 21.
okay,
But like I say, if they're there and they're ready to rock and roll,
Yeah.
we have that Edgenuity program. They actually have tablets over at the detention center.
okay, I didn't know that.
It's better because whenever we take packets like this, no staples, any clips, things like that.
That
So-
part I didn't know.
Right, so that kind of thing is really cool. So in that, they've already white paged our Edgenuity site, so they will be able to access that, and then we can just kind of teach and they can do their quizzes and tests.
Yeah, super, okay. Right.
And then while I'm here, guys, thank you so very much for all of you all that were able to go over on Monday. It was wonderful. We had a blast, and I hope you all did too. But come by whenever you can. We won't always have Dolores work over there, but we'll always make it comfortable. But thank you guys.
Thank you for the
Very good,
invitation.
yeah.
Mr. Nunez, do you want to add anything?
No, other than thank
Okay.
you again for everything, Superintendent Chavez and Demi School Board. We do have a good relationship and we want to continue working under your administration. So just let's keep in touch. And I know Ms. Shally Sharon is doing a good job. We've been in contact quite regularly. So we want to make sure that this is something that works for both of us. So we're appreciative of everything that you all have done for us.
Thank you.
If I could add something, when the charter school started, so many of the charter schools around were fought with the administration, and Deming Public Schools chose, not to do that, but to do what we needed for our children and the charter schools. So I think it's been a great partnership that we have been able to hold that over the years. I've forgotten how many years now, but I was 20 at that time. No, I had 20 years. That's right. No, but I do from schools that we're hearing around the state, there were fights and wanted to not cooperate and all. So I think we should feel great pride in that we have all worked together.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on C, the NEA, and we have Charity here.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. So, we held our event at the StarMax. It was well attended and enjoyed by all. We are having our annual delegate council meeting, which happens in Albuquerque. Would like to report that Deming is not really a big local when you look throughout the entire state. For instance, Las Cruces has over 1,000 members. We're just now hitting 200. But I will say, we are allowed to send 6 people to delegate council, and we have every year for the last, I think this is the 4th year in a row, we have had 6 people signed up to go. So it is something that we do actually have really active members able to attend these events. Personally, I think they're a bit boring, but they are essential.
Now, wait a minute. I'm gonna give a report.
She's done everything. Yeah.
So we're excited by that. Collaborating with other locals is amazing. For instance, I was just talking to the president of Las Cruces, who is doing something where he sends out informational stuff to the entire staff, telling them some stuff that's going on and the laws and stuff like that to help them to negotiate and to stay, you know, to help them to be better for their students. So we'll start doing that. We are also going to hold a town council sometime in the beginning of town hall meeting sometime in the beginning of November. Special education, I'm sure that you guys have heard about it before, is hard right now, to be perfectly honest. Coming out of post-COVID, we have behaviors that are more extreme than we've seen at any other time. We've also had some very needed increases in the rigorous nature of what as sped teachers that we have to write. It was needed, but it's still complicated. It's in some cases like writing a 10-page college paper on a kid. So, you know, those are difficult. We want to hear from special education teachers and staff on what they're experiencing for that stuff so that we can better negotiate for them and also so we can better help them serve our students and meet those needs. So we'll be having that. That's it. I will say though, I was actually here when the charter school was renewed last time. That was a fun meeting.
You don't have to give us the history.
I think the previous one was actually Harvey Lee Moore, so it was fun times there. I stand for any questions.
Any questions? Comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is our central cafeteria update.
Madam President, members of the board, we have several people. Mr. Parker is on Zoom. He had a little accident. I won't go into details. You can share those if you'd like, but he had a little accident and appreciate you being on because I know you're probably in some pain. So thank you for being here. We did provide a 1-page that Mr. Parker wrote that he'll be reviewing. And we have Mr. Wertz, Mr. Ou online to answer any questions, as well as Ginger. Ms. Jones is here to also answer questions. So with that, Mr. Parker, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I do apologize for not being there. I did, in fact, have an injury this weekend. I kind of hurt myself. I realized that the older you get, you don't bounce back. In fact, if you hit the ground, you don't bounce. So I did sustain a little bit of an injury that took me back to Cruces today, but I did have intent on being there and I actually tried. But by the end of the day, my hip and ribs were telling me otherwise. So I do apologize. But I did want to come to you via Zoom. I felt it was important to just update everybody on Central Cafeteria, kind of the little history about how we've gotten here and then where we see ourselves going. I did prepare just kind of a 1-page summary, so to speak. That's going to really just articulate a little bit about the history of what has transpired, employee impact, kind of our initial and our next steps, our mitigation plans, as well as a facility plan, and then some other concerns that were brought to our attention. So in general, I just kind of wanted to, I know you all know, but we do provide nutrition services for several of our schools, over 1,000 students. We provide those through Central Cafeteria for Bell Elementary, My Little School, Chaparral Elementary, and Memorial Elementary. We did have some intermittent gas smell in our Central Cafeteria facility from about December 5th, 2022 to about August 10th, 2023. The intermittent smell came from a variety of pieces. Every single one of those complaints, concerns, work orders was addressed by facilities team. Going, in some cases, it was attributed to sewer smell, or the smell went away and nobody could track it down. And so it wasn't until about August 10th that I working with Mrs. Jones, and Mrs. Jones working with Mr. Hasso, and then therefore with the superintendent saying, we got to dig into this a little bit more. It was just too frequent. So we did collaborate with city utilities. They came out and made a determination that there was some gas leak in the facility. The extent of the gas leak was never detailed, so we don't know how severe it was. We knew that there were a few places that it was leaking. When we started to initiate the repair on the gas lines, we went in thinking that we could make these repairs pretty simple out of a few of the connection joints that we knew were leaking. But upon repair attempts, pressure testing, review, there were more lines and more leaks that became evident. So it was going to take a longer amount of time, and it was determined that we needed to replace all the gas lines to ensure that we would not have any more gas leaks. We were concerned about any kind of gas leaks, and we were concerned about the safety of our employees. So we shut down the gas lines on there. When we first went into it, we believed that the repairs would take, a week, maybe two. But after we got the news realizing that it was going to take a little bit longer, much longer, and that we would not have hot water, we made the decision to transfer those cafeteria staff to other schools to provide those satellite nutrition services. So we did transfer staff over, I believe it was RST, DIS, Baton Elementary, to be able to do that. So that was kind of what we had. The total cost for repairs, it is all repaired, it is all safe, but the cost for repairs was about $63,694 and change to get that all up to date. And it did need to be brought up to code, and we had to repair some water heaters as well that were identified by the inspector to make sure we were there. So the facility is repaired for gas lines. That we did have some employees that expressed some concerns about their exposure to the gas, and so we were working with them to address any of their concerns, health related, through a workman's compensation process, and we are taking care of that. That our employees that were previously assigned to Central Cafeteria are doing well. We're having success running those through the other satellite schools. And until we have a plan for Central Cafeteria long-term, and we'll talk a little bit more about that through facilities master planning, our conversations with the board, and then as a district, we don't have an immediate idea about returning staff to that facility as of yet. We want to make sure that we're really thoughtful and intentional about bringing them back and possibly how we can improve that facility. This gas leak also, not only for our Central Cafeteria, but as you know, in the community, we've had several alarms about gas smell in the community and neighborhoods. So that did kind of elevate our need to have a mitigation plan on how we inspect our facilities. And for Central Cafeteria, that just brought it really, really close to home. So in working with Mr. Wirtz, we've developed a mitigation plan. We bought detectors that were able to test gas leaks within the OSHA level of requirements and safety levels. And we will be testing all school sites and all facilities, all gas connections twice a year. And this also includes our kitchens and appliances as well. So just to kind of give you an idea of it, we're going to continue to respond and inspect any gas lines that people believe may be leaking or any concerns with that. So our Director of Safety, Mr. Hasso, and our Director for Facilities will be working to respond to those. And for the board and for any community members or staff that are listening, anytime you suspect gas leak smell, please report it to the administrator, and we will initiate a district level response that'll bring a team of people out there to inspect it. And if it's serious enough, we'll follow evacuation protocols. And Mr. Hasso is looking at improving those and kind of looking at how we can do that. We did have, not related to Central Cafeteria, but we did have an evacuation that happened at Baton and Red Mountain that really kind of brought that home. It's like, okay, let's review that again, because there are special considerations for evacuation due to a gas leak. So that's just for you to know. Now, for the facility plan, Central Cafeteria is part of our facilities master planning that we're undertaking this year. And so we're going to be meeting very specifically to talk about that. We want to be really intentional about how we use that facility and what improvements are we going to make. That was also on a list of bond projects that we had committed to. and as well as my little school. And so we're trying to make the determination of what level of support and refurbishing or remodeling we want to do there to be able to have that facility at its full functional, full flagship level that it needs to be. So as we go forward with the Facilities Master Plan Committee, we'll be looking at and inspecting that facility to make that determination. And that's going to happen through the course of this year. They begin facility master planning inspections, I believe October 31st, and they're going to carry that through the first week of November, visiting all sites and facilities to make some recommendations. And I believe at the end of our agenda today, our superintendent is going to be requesting one of you to volunteer to be on that committee. So anybody who would like to be part of that, please join that. We want your input for that. The other concerns that were brought up, both locally and then just through word of mouth, were concerns about sewage backup and mice. The sewage issues that we have, really what we're talking about are drains that were backing up because grease being poured down the drains. And so those get cleared. On occasion, that does happen at school sites. And we've had other school sites, and our facilities team is fabulous. They respond, they clear those drains and get them flowing again to make sure that we don't have any backup. The other thing was a complaint about mice. We did look at that. We did have pest control go in, do an evaluation. We do have pest control mitigation services at that facility as well as all of our others. And that we didn't find anything with that. We have a pest control report that indicates that we did not have any mice at the time that that was reported. However, I wanted to do a little bit of digging and working with the facilities team. It looks like we did have one mouse that was caught in April of 2023, last school year. There was one mouse that was caught in the trap, and we've not had any evidence or any other mice since then. And we still continue, just as a point of reference, to provide that pest control services, even though we're not using that facility for nutrition services at this time. So that's kind of like the summary. That's kind of where we are right now. I stand for any questions. Of course, Mr. Wirtz is available, I believe. Ginger Jones is available. And then I can answer any other questions that may be human resources related or next steps or other things you would like us to address.
Mr. Parker, can I just clarify? So
Yep.
The Red Mountain and the baton incident, that actually ended up being a neighborhood issue and not school issue, right? Or
There was a neighborhood issue, and upon inspection, the city did come in and they have a very sophisticated meter, and they were able to really pinpoint some really tiny gas leaks that we went ahead and addressed. So we did actually repair those right away at Baton, and
That is not where the smell was coming from.
Yeah, but
Because
that's not.
they were under, what is the level that, I don't
The
remember.
allowable range.
Yeah, it was way below the allowable
Yeah.
range, but
Yeah.
it was something we knew needed to get fixed.
Yeah, that meter that the city used, I think, looking at the specs, will flag anything down to 5 parts per million. It's quite tiny. You wouldn't even be able to smell it. It wouldn't even come up if you were to spray a bubble solution, which is kind of a standard way to look at it. It wouldn't have come up. It just happened to be that the smell was in the neighborhood. We went over there, and rightfully so. You know, people were scared. It did smell, and then we just happened to find it. But we did repair that as well.
Okay. And
Mr. Parker, I got a question.
Yes.
Is it enough to do it twice a year instead of doing it maybe once a month or once every other month to make sure we keep up with it?
I think we
The
were going to.
inspections you're talking.
Yeah, I think we wanted to start with twice a year as one of the ways we start out the school year. And then also, as we go through and get ready to light up our heaters and do all those other things, we could definitely take that into consideration, either to do it quarterly. But there are, surprisingly enough, we were amazed at the number of actual connections that are for the gas line. So we could take that into consideration if that's something the board would want us to do. We could do it quarterly. I think monthly would spread us kind of thin to be able to do that at all of our facilities, all of the connection, gas lines, water heaters. So that's the only, we want to also be realistic. We don't want to set a goal and then we miss it a month and then we do that. But we do respond at any time. And we have responded where it's like, hey, I think it smells gas. Mr. Wirtz is there, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, testing that or going over immediately to see if that happens. So we're available anytime that suspicion or that smell happens.
And no, that's, okay. And so, Mr. Parker, is it correct that the central cafeteria is up to code and we could be using it right now if we chose to use it? We're just intentionally not using it at the moment until we determine what we're going to do going forward.
That is
right?
correct. That is
Okay.
correct. We could
Okay.
use it. There's a couple of reasons. There's the human end of it about not shuffling staff around and doing that. But the other thing is that, central cafeteria used to, when I came on board, we were running populations anywhere across the district from 53 to 5,600 students. Our 40-day counts are pushing us down to about 47, 4,800 students. So there's less of a demand to have to kind of resort to that. So we're kind of in that, what I would refer the Goldilocks zone, where we're able to provide that level of nutrition services. There are some things that we would need to rethink if we were to continue to not use it regarding cold storage and things like that. But those are some of the things I would like to address through facilities master planning. So that way we have adequate space for cold storage. We also have there's an opportunity that just came in that we could apply for a grant that came in through the public education department, specifically for our nutrition services, for infrastructure, as well as appliances and equipment that we hope between the bond money and that we can really do a good job of getting that up, not just up to, a level where we can do, but just a really, really improved facility to use for either for central services, for cafeteria, or for another purpose to have. I'm one of those kinds of guys where it's always good to have a backup piece. We were lucky enough to be able to move to that, because if we had like one of our, like say DIS went down, and knock on wood that it doesn't, we would be able to use central cafeteria and get that going. RST goes down, any of those. So it does help us in that, in that event.
I don't know how the facility is. I know I was in the district before for almost 40 years. And I don't know how that facility is, but are we talking about a completely a new side?
Say that again.
I think it was built in 1956.
56.
Yes. And, but are we talking about building a new building, not just the,
We don't know.
Yeah.
That's where the facility master plan
Right.
process will kind of determine
Mhm.
priority
Mhm.
around what we need to make it.
I
I think the processes would be just cleaner, just start new and get down the road. I think we put enough of a Band-Aid over it for enough years that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
well, that's my concern is it's gonna, if this is happening, then something else is going to start. And Ginger has done a great job for how many years?
Property.
Right.
So we do
Yeah.
have the property
Yeah.
to build a new facility if we wanted, while still housing at least our freezers and
Right.
coolers.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Cole and I were on the board when we did the last master plan, and the central cafeteria was on there, and that came up. And I remember Mr. Wirtz at the time saying, now construction's different, but that it would be really cheaper to build something next to it than to
Right.
redo it. And that was the intent back
I think
then.
that's still the same, really, because it seems like remodels have become very expensive as
Expensive.
well.
What they shared with us this weekend is construction costs around the state are right at $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah.
Commercial
We would
buildings.
have to be very intentional.
Remodeling's about $550 though.
Yeah, so.
So. I
Right,
mean,
right.
yeah.
No, so that, it has been on our list for
Right.
quite a
it
while.
has. Yes.
It's- Yeah.
If we make that determination through facilities master planning, would be a priority to construct, just kind of bearing in mind that, of course, our current bond money wouldn't cover that. We would have to probably do some special bonding out for that, the community to really support a facility that would be a brand new facility from the ground up to.
Unless
to
through the facility master plan, it was a scaled back version and it wasn't the full what it is
Correct.
now. And we
Yeah,
continue to
right.
use it as a backup as opposed to the primary for those other satellite schools.
right.
So,
Correct.
Isn't the central cafeteria supposed to be a hub if something happens here in this community to
Yes.
feed people?
Yes.
Well, maybe we should get some help from from the county and maybe from the city. If we're gonna be able to do that, they should be able to contribute and say, hey, we need a little bit of help here to be able to get this off the ground.
That's a great idea.
That is a good
That might
idea.
be something we could do with the three of, the
Mhm.
four of us actually, because the hospital, we're a backup for the hospital as
Right.
well.
That too, that let them write a check so he can help
And the
us out.
senior center.
Oh, yeah.
So we
that's
need to
good
build
idea.
a facility.
The largest facility in Lynn County as far as a kitchen facility
wow.
and then dual freezers and walk-ins.
Yeah.
So we hold the largest facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm just thinking out there. you
No,
know,
that's
so
a
we- So
great
we can
idea.
split the cost. It's gonna be shared anyway, so
Yeah.
it's something that we can do for the future, maybe.
Yeah, I think as
Yep.
long, when we project it as a facility for the community, not just the schools, we do a lot better
Sure.
as far as getting people behind us.
Right.
You know, and depending on the timeline of that, say we elect to do that, and it'll take a while to get to that point. We may be able to get, PSFA participation if they agree. And then on the interim, there could be some cosmetic things we can do to improve it. There are some things that as I go through of it, and it's just with my own eye, that I think we can do, fixing some seals, some painting, some other things in the restroom to kind of just get that. So that way, if we do have to use that facility, it does have some of these minor cosmetic pieces, but no severe remodel would happen, especially if we're going to be looking at a new facility altogether.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll go to our next item.
Seven consent agenda.
Consent agenda. We have that listed and it was in your packet. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
And we have a motion and a second. Would you take the call? The
Yes.
count, please.
Mr. Roscoe? Yeah. Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next is our action items.
Yes, and Madam President, members of the board, I don't see Mr. David Wertz here to present, but Mr. Turner is ready to present action item A.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, Mr. Wertz reached out to me regarding this out-of-state travel request for the DHS robotics team to go to Dallas next month, assuming that they qualify at a competition that they're at this month. As you know, our robotics team has been very successful. So we do ask for your approval, but it's for your consideration.
And I think they've qualified like the last
They
5
have
or 6
qualified.
years or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second for approval of the out-of-state travel. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Roscoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Kroll, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. All right.
So Madam President, members of the board, we're moving to action item C, which is consideration and approval of the solar power purchase agreement with Sunwealth LLC. We had a work session last week and we have representation Rocky, correct? I can remember Rocky, but I don't remember your last name. Backus. Okay, thank you, Mr. Backus, for being here. And we would ask for your approval of this, but definitely open for discussion.
We have any discussion?
I think I read through the whole thing. I was not here because I had some things to take care of, but I like the idea. I think it's good. I just think we need to make sure we start on the playgrounds and we do the areas where kids are waiting for buses and stuff like that. I think we need to hit that number one, and just to make sure that there's nothing goes on our roofs. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. And I know it's not, this gentleman told me it wasn't gonna go on.
No, it's not.
Just to emphasize that, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea.
Well, it seems to make sense to use it.
Yeah.
Not only for solar, but
for shade.
but for
covered
shade
everything.
and especially in our communities and
Mhm.
where we have such heat. Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the solar power purchase agreement with Sunwealth.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Would you take the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco. Yes. Mrs. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron.
Yes,
Mr. Crow, yes.
motion carries. Thank you.
We're ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Madam President, members of the board, the next item for your consideration is approval of a purchase from Lone Mountain Contracting. They are a CES vendor. And we have some work that needs to be done on the softball fields, needs to be resurfaced. And we would ask for your approval. So again, this is a CES vendor. We have right now $150,000 commitment to help us with this from the city. And then we're going to work with them as well on looking for additional funding, but we do have funding in some maintenance funds that we received from the state, and we are able to move forward. Mr. Chavez, would you add anything regarding that? It's been a while since we've done work on our softball fields.
Well, it is a city facility, so the one thing that's been short many years ago. So it's in need of turf right now, and so, you know, we have a great relationship with the city, then it's a good idea to go ahead and work on getting that up to par and that's just like standards for young ladies.
So we are looking at doing the second quote. They gave us 3 because we asked for infield only up to the 215 line. And then if we did the whole shebang. And so we are looking at doing the 508, and then added to that will be gross receipts tax. That's the only thing that's not accounted for in here.
Now, where will that money come from?
It's from our is it HB 505? It's going to be SB 9. So it'll be our SB 9 money, which is 2 mil, which is basically is our 2 mil.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
Yeah.
second.
we have a motion and a second. Mr. Crowe, will you call the vote for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco. Yes. Mrs. Cameron.
Yes,
Mrs. Hernandez.
Yes.
Mr. Crow, yes. And I just want to say one thing. I just hope in the future, the girls can get their own field. That's what
I
hope
agree.
One day.
We need to find a space.
mhm.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item.
Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Doyle is here to present for your consideration approval of some budget adjustments.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. You do have before you some budget adjustments. The first one initially was budgeted for a nurse. We are requesting funds to transfer so that we can actually pay an EA and have that fund instead. We do also for our Title I, number 9. We are requesting that we move some money so that we can cover the salaries for attendance secretaries. It's always hard to budget in May for what might happen in August. So this is what the time of year that we move those funds around.
May I ask something on that? I'm sorry. So Title I, are all of our secretaries under Title I?
No, these are attendance secretaries.
Okay.
All of our attendance secretaries are, yes.
And you can change, Title I then is appropriate for that. Okay, thank you.
That is above and beyond.
Okay.
The next bar that you have is for our after-school program. This was initially budgeted without really knowing who was going to participate. So as we have received the employees who are interested, we're budgeting accordingly. It's again difficult to budget and we don't know who's going to be paid out of the fund. And then number 11, this is our carryover for our Idea B preschool, which was the transfer bar you just approved. Again, we're putting all of this so that we can pay an EA out of that fund. Then we did get number 12. This is our GO bond award. This is actually, I'm requesting budget authority now, but these funds do not have to be expended until June of 2026.
That's forward looking, isn't it?
Right.
I want to make sure in case they're needed, that they're
Yeah.
available.
No.
We do also, the number 13 is budgeting for our hunter safety program grant. That's gonna be a stipend for the trainer for that program. And then the last two are actually both grads. The first one is for our high school grads program, and then the next one is actually for our childcare. So we did get money for both of those, and this is our initial budget request. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
There any questions? Anything you want to add? Okay, call for, if someone would like to move for the vote.
I'll make the motion that we approve the budget adjustment request 8 through 15.
You have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you please call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Roscoe? Yes. Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, the next item is also Ms. Doyle, and it is a budget adjustment request for permanent cash transfer. So I'll let her explain.
Yes, so this actually, this $100,000 deposit came to us in 2022. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And this was before PED had given us the fund that they had wanted us to use. So we went ahead and deposited it into our grant fund. Once I worked with PED on this, then they said, oh, you need to use this new fund. I'd already deposited the money. So now as I'm working with Andy on budgeting and everything, I'm requesting that we move it to.
Okay,
We're just changing the number.
It's really
Yeah.
just to make
Just the fund number.
move it from this.
Yeah.
But it requires board approval.
yes.
And PED approval and
Lots of approvals.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the permanent cash transfer.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Roscoe? Yes. Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the easy one tonight, wasn't it?
Right?
Very easy. And our final action item is item G, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of assets and their technology assets. So Mr. Glickler will provide that information.
You thought we weren't going to call on you, didn't you?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I'm seeking approval to auction off approximately 700 obsolete computers.
700?
700, yes, ma'am. 700 computers. Of these 700 computers, we inventory in the technology department all the computers that come into the district, even if policy doesn't require us to do so. Policy, as you know, requires us to tag and report anything over $1,000. Most of these are not that. Most of these, 680 of them are under $1,000 when they were purchased. There are 19 computers that were over $1,000 when they were purchased and are therefore reportable items, but we are seeking approval to auction all of them. These computers are all old. The oldest are, I think, around 2010. The newest are also 8 years old. They all have a depreciated value of $0, but we're selling them anyway and getting what we can. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions? What do people do when they buy these?
That's a very good question. It depends on the device. We have some computers, the old desktop 3010s that we've seen in classrooms from years past. They are mostly shot by this point. There's not much computer there, but there are parts. And there are metals and there are things like that inside that might be salvageable. So people purchase them in huge lots for scrap.
Oh, okay.
Occasionally, we have people from other schools, especially schools across the border, that will purchase some of the newer laptops that are beyond our ability to routinely maintain in a way that is effective. But still, if you really work with them, can be used. Occasionally, they sell for that as well.
Okay.
Usually, it's the first category, though. Usually, by the time we're selling these, they are scrap.
Thank you.
I'm one of the ones that buys them all them laptops.
Is that
What do you do
right?
with them?
I was thinking maybe
So
we
what
could
do
have a
you
high
do with
school
them?
class on how to.
Do you have a little workshop back there?
I'm mining. That's what I'm
I'm mining.
You're mining.
Oh, you're mining. You're crypto mining.
Oh, my.
Got it.
I do want to rip off that a little bit because occasionally people do ask,
Yes.
can I buy this laptop? And I'll say, no, not really. Because what we do is we don't sell them individually. We will pile them onto a pallet, we'll wrap them in plastic and we'll sell 100 of them at a go. They don't sell for very much at that point. So if somebody really wanted to buy a pallet, get one laptop, they could. But I recommend they just go to Walmart.
I think it's a conflict for you to bid on them.
Because if not, it's gonna come back to you, right?
That has happened.
Yeah.
Oh, again.
That's funny.
Any other questions or comments? Would someone like to move approval?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the for the disposal of assets.
I'll second that.
We have a
I
second.
figured you needed to after that.
Would you call for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now superintendent's report.
Yep, and we have a couple of reports. The first one is the attendance report, and this room is doing that. I thought it was gonna be Miss Parnell. Threw me a curveball. No, it's good. It's good.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, I'm here to give you guys the quarterly attendance report for Denton Public Schools. So do you guys have this?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so on the first page, if you see, we did, Mr. Ryan Senate elections data. And if you see the blue is the last full year we had at the public schools before COVID. So that's the blue one. The orange one is last year was our first full year. And then this year is the gray. If you look at the orange one, right after COVID, you can see that our attendance rate went down from 19 and 1920. It was below for most of our schools, a lot. But this year, if you look at the first quarter, we're almost back up to where we were before COVID. So our attendance is improving at every single site. We're close to being where we were before COVID, which is really good.
So DHS and Members Valley have gone down.
Well, they've gone up. If you look at the orange, DHS is up.
Well, yeah, they have got, you're right, but
And Members Valley is actually higher than it was before COVID.
okay.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I was thinking, though, I was
Yes,
thinking
and-
they were low compared to not last, but what
Yes,
other
but the
schools?
year right after
Yeah.
COVID, 2023, we were really low. We really had a lot of issues with absences in our school, and we know that. But our kids are coming back, so we're almost close to where we were right before COVID, which is good.
What are our total? I've seen it recent, I can't remember. Our total enrollment.
Our 40-day count was 4,800.
Yeah.
A little over 4,800.
I just couldn't remember that.
So we're down in numbers, membership.
Mhm.
But our attendance is going up, which our kids are coming back and the attendance is going up. So the next one is our chronic.
I'm gonna ask you one question. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
definitely.
So I don't know if we just contribute all to COVID, but so the high school in Members Valley don't look like they're bouncing back as
Quickly.
yeah, as the younger. Do we just think that's just COVID, or is there something else going on with the older kids?
No, I think it's still, we're still being impacted by COVID. And I think the kids were used to being home and now, and they're a little bit older. So the parents, I think it's harder for them to get them to school. They're
Okay.
used to coming home, they're older. So
Yeah.
now a lot of parents don't have that leverage as with the little ones. And I think we're still battling that.
Okay.
And I'll talk to you a little bit of what we're doing to try to work.
My question
that.
was that, yeah.
So, and I can tell you that right now. So, Mr. Wyman and myself and the school success team have really been working close with every person in our building who works with that, with attendance of how we do parent visits, what we do for the letters, but we've also been working very closely with JPO. And I think we've had this, yesterday was our 4th meeting with them and how we're working together and how they're going to support us in with referrals and going into families and holding parents accountable. So we're working with our liaisons, we're working with our principals, we're doing everything we can to get the word out to our parents. It's important for them to have the kids at school, and that's the only way we're going to be able to support them and help them. So
Yeah.
we have been doing a lot of work with that. I think another work that we need to do is we need to go into the community and we need to start talking to parents about the
importance of having their children in school. So that's another thing we're
So
working.
we can't arrest the parents, huh?
No, as a matter of fact, there's really not a lot we can do. We don't have a lot of teeth when it comes to making parents.
Right.
I mean, but JPO has been really good, Patricia Hernandez is really working closely in what could we do together to ensure that we can bring them
That's
into
great.
school? Yeah, but it is harder to bring the older kids.
Yeah.
Parents are, I mean, we used to have parents, I can't get them up, but can you come and wake them up?
Right.
I can't,
Yeah.
so it's harder when they're older.
Yeah.
Parents tend to.
You gotta set those habits young.
Yes, and you know,
They're
parents can
critical.
back off
True.
when they're older and they would tell us, I can't get them up, I can't make them go to school. Well, you're the parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harder as a result.
Yeah. So not to give up on those kids, but in another year or two, when the middle school kids are there and we don't have the COVID high school kids, it should be higher, right? I
Well,
mean,
we're hoping that by the end of this year, we can give you guys a report with that this will be higher by the end. of
okay,
this year.
okay,
Because like I said, we're working really hard to ensure
Yeah.
that we get those kids back.
that's awesome.
Takes a while after they're used to being out for so long.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that by the, like I said, the elementaries are bouncing back, right?
Yeah, no,
The middle school, DIS, but the high school, a little bit, DHS. is
yeah,
The one that's having struggling a little bit.
Well, I think it's also interesting, if I could just add, I just did a quick and I may have missed it, but if you look at like DIS in 1920, they were at 93.9%. And you look at Red Mountain in 22-23, because those are our Red Mountain kids in 22-23 and 23-24, because they're seventh graders and eighth
Mhm.
graders, their attendance as a cohort is pretty steady across
Right.
the moves from their schools. It is what
Yeah.
that would be interesting to
Yeah,
see
with that.
longer term. Like,
yeah,
are we just seeing cohorts that
Mhm.
are, there's just a trend? I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. No,
So
that is
I just
interesting.
quickly looked at that and said, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, also the next one is our chronic absenteeism trends. And if you look as well, we can give you kind of the same data. If you look at, in 18-19, and then you look at 22-23, it was really, I mean, you had a lot of chronic absent students, but now we're kind of bouncing back again. We're kind of this quarter, we're kind of looking at the same as we were in 18-19 as well. So-
yeah, and some of those schools are even better than we
Yeah.
were before,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Bell and Columbus.
Mhm.
Yeah, wow.
Something else.
And I don't know if you have seen kind of some of the national news, but there was just an article, and when I find it again, I'll send it to you, but nationally, schools, districts are struggling with chronic absenteeism. Like
Yeah.
that is the issue right now, is this, there's a certain number that are really excessive absences that are chronically absent. So I'll share that with you guys, because it is definitely something happening all over the country.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're talking to JPO with the conversations we're having is they want 10, in order for them to do anything, they want 10 consecutive absences. But the law states it has to be 20%. So it doesn't have to be 10 days. So it depends on the amount of days we're in school. If they're absent 20% of the time, they should go out and find out where these kids are. So that's the struggle we're having with them right now. They want 10 consecutive days. We're telling you, no, it's 20%. 20% right now can mean
It's 8
7
days.
days,
It's
8 days.
Right.
So when we get them at 8 days, if they're absent, we're sending a referral and she's saying, no, we need 10 consecutive. No, the law states it's 20% and we need you to intervene now. If we wait for
Right.
10 days, they might have 40%
Yeah.
absent.
Yeah,
Might.
right.
So we're trying to make them understand that it's 20% and it's not 10 consecutive.
Are they cooperating?
Yes, I tell you that it's been great. Our conversations with her and they've been really good. So we're moving. So, I mean, we do have a lot of chronic absenteeism within our district. And that's something we're gonna have to look at. How do we get to parents? How do we make parents understand that their kids need to be in school?
And I think part of that is also ensuring they have the resources,
Yes.
like what's stopping,
Mhm.
figuring out what is stopping you from getting your kids to school? Is it transportation? Is it clothing? Is it, I mean, like, what's going on that we can, is there anything we can help mitigate? So that's the
Like a
other part
parent.
to it all. Yeah, yeah.
And in the last page, these are the things that we need to kind of help support with attendance within our district. And one of the things that Mrs. Chavez just talked about is, you know, we're looking into what supports are there out there for our parents when it comes to homeless, students with disability, dental, migrant, all of those counseling, all those resources that we have CYFD. What other resources do we have that we can give to parents and see what's going on, what's happening, how we can support you so that we can have kids back in our school. Like I said, we're trying to work with our principals. Our principals are doing a very good job on incentives for our kids. What are we going to do? How are we going to recognize our kids at the end of the year, middle of the year, so that they want to come to school, they want to be in school? What are the things that we're doing within our academics that the kids want to be in school? One of them is PBL. I mean, the kids are really enjoying the project-based learning. So they want to come to school because they want to do this projects. So what are we doing within our school that we are retaining our kids and having them want to be within our school and doing?
Yeah. Thank you for putting that together. That's
Right.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Wyman, he's pretty amazing. All credit to him, and he couldn't be here today, but he took it.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
These are done by the year. Is it throughout the year that these statistics are put together?
Yeah, so this one is quarter. This is the first quarter.
Uh-huh.
So every quarter will give you guys an
Good.
update on what that looks like. But then I hope with everything that we're doing, you'll see that increase.
Great.
So we'll give you a quarter update every time.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So with that, item B under the superintendent's report is what Mr. Parker talked about earlier. If you'd like to be on the facility master plan committee, it would be great to have a couple of representatives. They're gonna be doing focus groups and meetings and feedback. So if you're interested, let myself or Mr. Turner know so that we can keep you in the loop of, but they are getting started. So we'll need to know within the next week or so if you're interested in being part of that group, because we would love to have your input and your perspective. They will come and do report outs though. So it's not like anybody would be left out or you wouldn't have a voice, because I know you're volunteers and we appreciate all the time you donate. So that's really all I wanted to announce there. And then our final superintendent's report is the student purchase of laptops upon graduation. So this is something I believe Mr. Glickler brought this to kind of the idea in a previous presentation last school year. And I don't know if you want to just speak to it at the high level of what it is we might propose, get your feedback before we ever come up with a policy around this, and then start moving this forward.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. I'm pitching here a process in which students, when they graduate for a small fee, could keep their laptops. That's just the high level summary right there. That's the bottom line of the fund.
Sounds great.
Here, you get that.
Yeah, right. It's the advantage of going last.
The shortest report. So please pick it up on your way out.
If I knew there were M&Ms on the line, I would have been terse. No, we already talked about inventory a little bit here earlier and the process that we go through. And I certainly invite any of you who would like to see it, what the process looks like come this November, when we do go around the technology department conducting inventory for all the school sites. We do it on their behalf, so the principals don't have to do it. And that means that the technicians go around every building and scan every piece of technology. And we find that every year that there are items of technology that we are routinely scanning year after year that are just not being used. Part of that comes from our surplus process at the end of the year. Part of it comes from when seniors are graduating and their laptops are recycled back into our stockpiles. Those laptops, when they're recycled back into the stockpiles, are no longer warranted. They don't have a full warranty, so if they break, they're done. So we don't tend to use them for the one-to-one program at the high school anymore. Instead, we use them to plug gaps around the district, provide loaner devices. If there's gaps at schools because things are broken and we can't buy new ones yet, we hand them out, but we still have a pile of them. But that said, even though they're not warranted anymore and they can break, those laptops usually have a few more years of life where they can function, where they can be used. And to that end, we have found uses in the district where we'll find a lab that needs 30 laptops, so we'll pull them off the shelf. Still needs computers there that are getting scanned, and eventually they're not being used, they're being scanned year after year, and then we just sell them in a pallet. What I'm proposing here is that instead of doing it that way, we put together a program where students could get their laptops reset when they graduate, pay a fee and keep it. I think that laptop would carry that student through 2 years of college, which can be very useful if they go on to pursue associate's degrees or start on bachelor's degrees. I think it can be especially useful for students that are at the early college who may only have a couple years of college left, and that device can carry them through. For the small fee that we're proposing here, I think it is $50 in the proposal. That works out to approximately the depreciated value of the device anyway. It works out well for the student because they have a computer far cheaper than if they did go to Walmart, as I suggested earlier. And it works out well for the district because we're selling them for not much at all on the pallets. And it works out well for our inventory process, because we're frankly wasting a lot of hours every year just scanning computers year after year that are not getting used until they're sold and we get rid of them anyway. To this end, what we've done is we've been looking at the process that we image the computers, that is the way that we put content onto them, the software onto them, to make it so that we don't have to bring the computers back to us. If a student did choose to keep them, we could do it remotely. That's something we're working on, not done yet, but I'm hoping it'll be done by May. Secondly, we have restored a process at the high school. One of the things that we did because of the warranty program, if it breaks, we can fix it. If we just give out whatever random computer we have, well, the students don't like that. They like getting the same computer back year after year. They put stickers on them and decorate them. So we went back to that process. What it does is it really gives people a sense of ownership of those devices. They feel like that they have an investment in it and they get to keep it. And if they take good care of it, they're going to get that computer back next year in the same condition that they left it in. I think this ties into this proposal here. It means that the student will be taking care of their computer year after year, and then they'll know that there's a price tag attached at the end of that process. And if they take good care of it, it'll be worth paying and they'll get to keep the device. With that, I stand for any questions.
I think it's a great idea.
I love
That's
it.
great. So it'd be about 120 bucks
Is the value,
is the value.
but we'd only charge 50 is what we're proposing.
That is correct. And that's not a number that is settled on for any particular rhyme or reason, except it seems, it feels like the right amount. And we can certainly go with a different dollar value if one made more sense to the board or to the district.
And if I could say something, last year, a lot of the kids would come and ask, can I buy them? Can I sell them? And we would say no, so they would really purchase.
And they really do like the program where they get their computer back that they have.
Yes.
I love
They
that.
get somebody else's and the complaint over how the last person didn't take care of it.
Positive peer pressure.
I think it's a great idea and I really do.
I do too.
But before moving forward with this, we wanted to make sure you guys had an opportunity for questions and input.
Oh, I think that's good.
Well, no, and we assume that people also have the money to get a laptop and that's not always,
Right.
that's not true. Not always, it's not true.
No, and one of the other hooks with these laptops, even though they're 4 years used by this point, is we get them through a K-12 purchasing program, so they may be a slightly better device and they'll be able to get themselves for similar money. I wanted to emphasize one other pragmatic thing that came up because of this getting your computers back or being done with them at the end of the year question. A lot of this is also very pragmatic, is that for some students, they just walk out the door and the laptop goes with them. And we spend a lot of time looking for that device. The school spend a lot of time saying to the teachers, call the family, and we may get it back, we may not. And so part of this stems from that pragmatism of like, well, some of this is happening anyway. How can we put something around it that makes it, shines a light on it and also makes it better?
Yeah.
If there, I know we think everyone has $50, but if not, will there be some kind of help for these students to get it?
That's a very good question. I don't know that I get a full say in that, but I think that there should be. One of the things that I would like to see that comes in with this is have a process wrapped around it that would include like a form that is filled out requesting the device. And there could be a section in there that indicates if there's any hardship, or we could work with some of the other departments in the district to find funding for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
I certainly wouldn't want any students to be in a situation where they need the computer, they've been using it for 4 years, they've been taking care of it. I think they should have that computer.
Right.
And we can have a process that makes that happen.
Right. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is a great idea.
I do too.
And the funds would go right back into the one-to-one. I mean, we spend
Yeah.
about $250,000 every year anyways. We'd never recover that much. And this would just help fund that one-to-one. and the.
Well, it also prevents maybe students from just taking it, saying it
Possibly.
lost, but taking, because they don't have another way to get it. We assume everybody has a computer at home and it's.
And we'll certainly say, and you're right, I'll say in the student's defense, I think a lot of the computers that go missing are not because somebody's actively stealing them, it's just families move. They
Right.
treat it like a textbook, they forget they have it, and the next thing you know, they're halfway across the state and they go through their luggage and there's a laptop with a tag on it. We have had computers come back to us the next year, or somebody who's still in the family comes back and says, hey, my older sibling has this still, but it's not at home. But no, please marinate on it, please let me know if you have any thoughts or advice, or recommendations.
I would think too, the students, if they knew this, might take better care of those that don't.
Yeah.
We're sneaky, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I
Serves a
didn't teach
lot of
first grade for nothing.
purposes. And then Mr. Cole can't go mind his
Oh, yeah, I know.
talent of computers.
Are y'all keeping track of ours? Too?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, we're on item 10, announcements, and I'll let you take that over. You got your M&Ms.
There's more hidden over there somewhere.
Well, you did a good job, but I didn't mean to. Oh, this is like what happens with the laptop, right?
Right. The incentive.
Okay, under 10 announcements, do we have any requests from our board members for agenda items?
I'm gonna make a request. I know that the PED ranks our district and our schools. And I would really like to see where we are compared to everybody in the state, how we're doing. I'm not 100% the way they do things, but at least we get an idea if we're making progress to move forward. And so I think that'd be good if we can just find
So
out.
it's public, it's on the New Mexico Vistas website, and we're happy to pull that together.
That's not
Yeah.
current data though.
No, it's
No,
not.
I know that's not current, but let's see, next
Oh,
year, see if
next
we
month.
we can do a lot better, or where we're at and see what we can improve on.
Absolutely.
So maybe
Great
December
idea.
hits-
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I get another question. Don't we, in November, don't we do it in Columbus? Or is it in December?
I think it is. No.
So
Yeah.
last year we moved it to November, but
Oh, okay,
historically.
it is December. Okay, no, I was just
Oh,
curious.
I
Yeah,
can
just
work
curious
with that
about it.
and see if-
No, I'm just curious about it.
Whichever way, I think
Yeah.
with whichever you work, you let us know.
No,
What works
just
for
curious
them.
about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so we are now, anything else from the board? If not, we would entertain a motion to adjourn and move into post-executive session. I guess I can make that, can I? I move that we,
No,
No.
no,
I'll
you
do it.
cannot.
I cannot. Okay. See,
All these
But
rules.
someone else can.
So I make a motion that we adjourn the open portion of the meeting and move into closed executive session. No action will be taken, but to discuss the threatened or pending litigation as authorized by section 10-15-1 H7 of the Open Meetings Act.
okay. Yeah, do I have a second?
Also,
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
yes, ma'am. Mr. Roscoe? Yes. Mrs. Cameron?
Yes.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Okay, thank you.